Welcome back to another Whiteboard episode, boys. Today it's Shark Boy and Lava Girl, or as a user so beautifully put last episode, the homeless and the hairless, Logan.
I call dibs on hairless.
I call dibs on Lava Boy. So today we're doing the best new bikes for 2026. These are all new models for the upcoming year, bikes that you guys are probably interested in getting, especially for first-time riders. Got some cool new entries to categories that are being currently defined as we see here in the marketplace in the world of motorcycling. Logan, are you pumped to do today's video?
I'm pumped to talk about 8 different Royal Enfield 650s.
You know what? Let's rip the Band-Aid right off because the first one, it is ranked worst to best. The Classic 650 by Royal Enfield. So we do have a 650.
Man.
And we're just a little bored of Royal Enfield 650 offerings. We feel that they are just turning into styling exercises. I mean, you can only take it so far, right? You had the Continental GT, the Interceptor 650, wow, clip-ons, handlebars, that's really different. Then it was like Shotgun 650, Super Meteor 650, Bear 650, Twink 650, Otter 650. Wait, is that... Do they have those?
Twink Versatile 650.
Versatile Twink 650. That's a good one. So yeah, I just feel like they're getting into that kind of point. What do you think?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, and it's funny because they're all classic bikes, right? They're all styled after sort of classic 50s, 60s British motorcycles, whether it be cafe racers, roadster, scrambler, what have you. The classic is maybe the most classic of the classics, that more 30s-esque look.
Yeah.
And I'm just thinking they keep going further back. We're looking at sort of a hardtail Janus type situation, ultra classic 350 maybe.
Right,
you know?
yeah. I mean, at that point, you
get
have a
excited about
Janus
that.
competitor for half the price and
Yeah.
then finally put that company out of business for good, you know? The boys over at Goshen to say, oh, no, they did it. They finally figured out the ruse is up. We're just kidding. We like Janus enough, you know, whatever. They're fine. So for the Classic 650, we just feel like Royal Enfield has been teasing us with this 750 concept, this liquid-cooled parallel twin. It's been like 4 years now, and I totally get it because I actually spoke to the CEO there, and what they do is that they take their time. Like the Sherpa 450, he said that they were testing it for like 4 years, making sure it was really ready to go before releasing it. And honestly, in the world of like, you know, 1 year you got one Chinese bike, the next year you got another Chinese bike, I can appreciate a company taking their time.
Sure, yeah, for sure.
And so I did get the chance to do the Super Meteor 650 launch and the Himalayan 450 launch out there in India, which was super cool. So got to meet some of the Royal Enfield guys, and that's kind of some of the background. But hey, if someone out there is listening, launch the 750. It's time. I don't think the market can accept another 650. I think we've reached peak 650.
I agree.
Yeah.
But I think if someone's interested, it is a neat looking bike. I like that chrome, like shiny, whatever that's called. It's got the little pea shooter exhaust. It is a nice looking bike. I will give them that. Their motorcycles are very handsome, even if they are a little samey after a while.
Sure.
So this next motorcycle is a little bit of a cop-out because it's not 100% brand new, but it's got some pretty significant updates for 2026. That's the Triumph Daytona 660, your favorite motorcycle.
My favorite bike. Totally not emotionally biased to dislike this motorcycle, nothing like that. What's new on this bike? What'd they change, Logan?
Good question. Quick shifter, I think.
IMU,
IMU,
couple updates. See,
couple
I'm
updates,
testing them in
yeah.
real time. Yeah, so I know the answer to today's question. So it's an IMU, quick shifter up and down. You get yellow paint now. Logan.
Yellow paint, yes.
Yellow paint. I think they changed the headlights a little bit. So yeah, this one, teensy bit of a cop-out because guess what? There's not that many new motorcycles out there. Completely brand new models, brand new concepts. So this one was a very significant update. Kind of like what Yamaha did with the R7, you know? New display, new IMU, kind of new plastics. Because, you know, Triumph's got to get this right because they are competing in that very hotly contested, not so super sports segment.
Sure.
You know, the new 70 to 90 horsepower, kind of like sport bikey things based on naked bikes. And even though I am not a huge fan of this motorcycle because I think it's a Triumph Triumph processed substitute. This video is getting way too spicy. I did not mean to say that. That was a Freudian slip, perhaps. This motorcycle is a good seller for Triumph, much like the R7 is a good seller for Yamaha. So we hope that it keeps doing well for them. But what do you think about it, Logan?
Yeah, I mean, it's all right. I've kind of Triumph's been rubbing me the wrong way lately. Like, I don't like this new, they're just going the way of the Japanese. And it's like, if I want a Japanese bike, I'm just going to buy a Japanese bike. I don't want this sort of British by way of India, by way of Thailand with the philosophy of a Japan. It's just, I don't really like it that much. That being said, a lot of people are having a lot of fun with the Daytona as the Trident 660, but not particularly to my taste or my liking.
He's an anti-globalist, is what you
Sure.
are. You want bikes that have mechanical terroir, right?
100%.
Yeah. All right, next up is a new model, but kind of a twist on an existing model. We're seeing some cross-platforming. Obviously, we talked about the classic 650 and the Daytona 660. Honda's doing the same thing, trying to cash in on the neo-retro craze, which has been going strong for
10 years?
10 years, 15 years. It's going to come all the way back at some point. It's the new CB1000F. Now, this one, Logan, we ranked it a little bit lower for today's video because they're having some problems getting it over here to the States. So we're like, you know, kind of got some question marks on Honda's new It Girl phase, right? As we've been calling it, where they're coming out with a lot of bikes, but maybe cutting a few corners. You know, maybe the Japanese are starting to slide a little bit.
Maybe.
Hot take.
Hot take.
Hot take. I'm just saying, Kawasaki's bottom ends are blowing up. This has, how many gay jokes are we gonna make in today's video? The CB1000F is the CB1000F has some is it oil issues that it has? What did we look up?
Yeah, it's some sort of oil thing.
Yeah, it's an oil thing. And so, you know, we're starting to see the Japanese motorcycles just get to a point that maybe they're just pumping them out a little too fast, Logan. Just
pumping it
too fast. We've turned into 12-year-old boys over here on Yami Noob. Sorry about that, folks. Logan, CB1000F, walk.
Yeah, so something that's interesting about this one, I think, so of course, yeah, the Neo Retro reskin uses mostly shared parts from the CB1000 Hornet, which also in itself had a lot of shared parts from old Honda models. What's interesting about the CB1000F, a lot of shared parts from the CB1000 that already has a lot of shared parts from the older, you know, Fireblade models and stuff. It was kind of controversial how detuned the CB1000 Hornet already was in the US. Claimed 150 horsepower overseas. Here it's like 130, a little bit less. The claimed horsepower for the CB1000 is 122 horsepower out of a 1000 cc engine.
Yeah, it's starting to get ridiculous.
That's a little ridiculous and not a huge increase in torque either. And so, yeah, was this an emissions thing? Is this a reliability play? Is it sort of trying to be more old feeling, a little bit more like a lumpy air-cooled inline four that the UJMs had?
I hadn't thought about that. Yeah, maybe if they're detuning it so much that the old timers are going to buy it, they're like, it feels exactly like my old bike. You're like, yeah, because it's making barely any power, you know? I mean, 120 horses, like MT09 numbers. That's like middleweight naked numbers nowadays. That's not even 1000 cc numbers. But this bike's not really aiming for that. It's not trying to be some fire-breathing hyper naked. It's clearly like a low-key retro UJM thing. And I am excited that the kind of silver look of it is kind of cool. Speaking of silver, when are we going to get the Silver Wing to come back?
I don't
know. That namesake.
Yeah.
Come on. That would be so cool. We were talking about it. What would be cool as a Silver Wing? Like a CB750 Sport Touring bike, right?
Yeah. So like a Transalp on like 17s or like 18, 17, a little stiffer suspension, but the same sort of general chassis, wind protection. So I think that would be pretty cool.
Yeah, that would be cool. But this new CB1000F, not the most exciting thing, and I think the Z900 RS is still a better executed kind of neo-retro, old-school Japanese bike in a modern-day configuration. So kind of ranked a little lower for us. Moving on.
I knew it was only a matter of time before we're talking Chinese motorcycles. 2026, the year of the Chinese motorcycle. So the next motorcycle on our ranking today is the CFMoto 675 NK. So sort of the second afterbirth of the 670.
Good Lord, this video is off the rails today.
NK meaning naked kind.
Naked, is that what it means?
I don't know.
Something like that? Yeah, like
naked,
MT's
probably.
Master of Torque, NK is, naked, something like that. So, NK 675, $7,499, Logan.
Yeah,
That's some
bargain.
2019 pricing. That's pre-COVID pricing for you, boys. How did the Chinese do it? We have no idea. It's crazy. They obviously do it because they're cutting corners somewhere and putting on features and farkles that you may not need, that don't really add to the experience. This bike, cable throttle, you know, not ride-by-wire, something to think about. Can't get cruise control on it. Curved TFT display. I don't know how curved it is. I didn't really notice that on the press materials or the briefing or anything, but it's apparently curved, right? So 95 horsepower from a 675cc triple, about 51 foot-pounds of torque. And Logan, people online tell me that you can tune these and make 130 horsepower.
I'll believe it when I see it.
That's just some kid named Braden on Instagram who said that, so who knows if it's actually true. But these have been really popular. I think CFMoto's doing a great job with their kind of middleweight, new kind of offerings. It's got a really spicy, interesting exhaust note. We saw on the website for the American market, they are very much reminding you guys that there's no fees, no subscriptions, no paywall, none of this.
No more bullshit.
No more bullshit. They took a page out of KTM's book. But the global market, you have some bullshit to contend with, I hate to tell you. But if you're an American, I suppose there is no paywall, no subscription, none of that stuff. And there's still a question mark around Chinese bikes. There's still a question mark. I think this is an interesting product, cool new addition to the lineup. 3 cylinders, we got the Daytona 660, the 675 NK. Is it my kind of 3-cylinder? No, like a little bit more power and a little bit more zest, but for $74.99, that's a lot of motorcycle.
That's a lot of motorcycle.
Yeah,
and if you're able to live with yourself, and live with the motorcycle, maybe it's a good buy.
Yeah, I'll tell you this: when China invades Taiwan and they cross that South China Sea, and you're all sitting there with their CFMotos, and they activate like the Winter Soldier, and then they flip on you, and then you're gonna regret not enlisting in the draft and not having some armed conflict skills to fight off your CFMoto. It's gonna happen, Logan.
And that's why I open carry on my Harley Davidson.
They all call him old Logan One Ball Mulholland over here on his open carry Harley Davidson, fighting off the CFMoto cyber demons in 2027. So if you want to live in that future, want to subject yourself to that, that's your prerogative. I will stick with my stupid motorcycles that are not connected to the internet in any way, shape, or form. Because I will say, even though the app is free or whatever, I don't really want my bike talking to my apps.
No, I mean, that's not something
I don't need
ever once cared about in any capacity.
No, it's not even about motorcycles today, Logan. It's about afterbirth and prostitutes and, Kawasaki's bottom end getting blown out. Speaking of Kawasaki, the next motorcycle that's making some serious waves, KLE500. Now, Logan, Fortnite told me what to think about this motorcycle. He got me a bait and switch, I watched the video and I was like, I don't know what to think about it. And then he told me it was bad. I said, motorcycle bad. But then I watched the rest of it and he said, motorcycle good. And I said, wait a minute.
Heel turn.
Motorcycle, he heel turned me, So motorcycle good. And now I know what to think. And it's because I think it's okay to sit and stand on the bike, but it's kind of tall, but it has enough realistic suspension travel. I don't know, something like that.
Yeah, it sounds good to me, I guess.
But when I take my little Redditor hat off, this motorcycle is perfectly, fine.
Yeah,
what I think it does more than anything is it legitimizes the kind of entry-level ADV category. Kawasaki definitely needed something in this range, and of course they just cross-platformed their 500cc. They've been using it in everything. That's why they bumped it up to 451. It's not some conspiracy to make it rev high or be sporty or whatever. They just had the engine line around. They're like, we're just gonna put it in the chassis. What do you think?
Yeah, so my thinking with this bike is they just reverse engineered a Moto Morini, Because those early Moto Morini ADV bikes use the Ninja 650 engine,
yes.
right?
Yeah.
And while that engine is not the exact same as one of the KLE, I think it has a sort of similar spirit, a little bit, whatever, it's fine, right? And yeah, if you're in a Ninja 500 and you're revving it out, sure, it's a little bit more fun, but I like an ADV bike with a little bit more grunt, a little bit more character, if you will. And forgive me, but do I think that Ibex 450 might be a more interesting motorcycle than the KLE500?
Maybe.
Maybe a little bit.
Yeah, I think it looks better. Honestly, the KLE
sure.
looks kind of weird.
Yeah,
it does look like a Moto Morini. Why is a Japanese bike looking like a Chinese bike?
And
why is a Chinese bike looking like a European bike? What's going on? It's crazy.
And then my other take on it is I'm sick of the multiple trim levels on Kawasaki's beginner bikes. Just make the best beginner bike you can, price it fairly where it competes with other motorcycles. Debate and people are like, oh, the price is so good on this. It's $6,300. It's yeah, it has LCD dash.
Yeah.
That's kind of ridiculous to me.
Yeah, Kawasaki's the only one doing that in the entry-level category. Everybody else, Royal Enfield sells the Himalayan 450. I think it just comes in one standard trim. You can get different paint colors if you want, but it's not a massively different spec between the two. So I'm not sure why Kawasaki does that. They do it with the Ninja 500s too.
Yeah.
They sell the base 500, but then the KRT SE with all the Farkles and stuff. And I'm if I'm gonna put Farkles on my beginner bike, let me just put them on myself. I will just do that, And so this bike, missing a little bit of that low-end grunt, but again, probably going to be a really great seller just because it is a Kawasaki, because, in this category so far, it's been CFMoto, a lot of people might say no to that, Royal Enfield, a lot of people might say no to that, KTM, you know, a lot of people say no to that,
Sure.
But you give them a Kawasaki, tried and true, bulletproof, reliable, dealerships around your area, I think a lot of people will come to the fold with that.
And I think, because right now their main competitors for that motorcycle are the DRZ or DRZ4S or whatever, which is of course a dual sport, not adventure bikes, are a little bit limited in its like road going manners, less likely to be able to hold a bunch of luggage, things like that. Or the CRF 300 Rally. Those are the KLE's like greatest competitors. When that's the baseline, sure, you get a lot more motorcycle, a lot more usability, functionality, and things like that. And especially, it's like way cheaper than the new DRZ. It's like $9,000 or something.
Yeah, it's
crazy.
way cheaper. And it is interesting that they've basically just like cannibalized their KLR 650 sales. Like it's difficult to see someone showing up at a dealership between a KLR and a KLE500 and not just go home with the KLE500.
But I think those are almost not even the same customer. I think this is going to save a lot of people from buying the KLR, not fully realizing what it's meant to be and why it still exists. And then they buy one, then sell it. That's why you can find them for like $4,500, like nearly brand new KLRs. Because the person that wants a KLR still wants a KLR. Like they want that single cylinder donkey engine. They want super rudimentary, like unkillable, old school, dual sport ADV hybrid thing. And then I think the KLE is for all the new generation, a broccoli-headed baby ADV riders.
Yeah, and this category is kind of like what happened in 2014 with like the baby sport bikes, where everybody started getting in. We're seeing this like slowly coalesce and get very legitimized, and you'll see further up on the list we have another baby adventure bike, but for different reasons why it ended up further up. So let's move on. We have finally ended the streak of piddly middleweight sport bike giveaways on YamiNoob.co. 2026 is feeling different because I've got this fire-breathing 175 horsepower V4 motorcycle right here up for grabs on YamiNoob.co. Click the link down below and support the show. Become a member today for your best chance to win this machine and have it show up in your driveway. You're not going to want to miss it. This is one spicy meatball, and I hope it goes to one of you watching right now. Click the link and check it out. Now back to the show.
So at this point in the video, I'm starting to see a pattern. Of course, I said we have multiple baby adventure bikes. Also kind of a lot of retro-styled styling exercise motorcycles from India. The next motorcycle is the Triumph Thruxton 400.
Yes, Thruxton 400.
Triumph has almost as many 400s now as Royal Enfield has 650.
And they've done it in half the time, Logan.
Yeah.
They have been pumping them out. I mean, they must have seen that first like Speed 400. They're like, we sold so many of these things. Like, make as many of these as possible. So yeah, they have the Thruxton 400, the Tracker, the
Scrambler,
Rambler,
XP, Scrambler XC.
Yeah, and then the Speed.
Yeah.
And you can tell where Triumph's energy and effort is going into. I tell you guys this all the time. Motorcycles that have many different cross platforms or constantly get revisions are where the money is for the manufacturer. You know, think of Suzuki and they're like, GSX-R 750. Nobody buys those damn things. So they never update them, they never change them. You get new graphics every other year and that's it. But like you see Triumph and their 400s, there's new bikes coming out every year. There's new colorways, there's new styles, there's new graphics because they're selling a ton of these bikes. And these bikes are important for the industry, right? We're looking at these bikes today. None of them, other than the CB1000F, are over $10,000, right? Most of the new motorcycles coming out nowadays are way under that price point because people are just trying to get people to buy bikes. And if you keep making $12,000, $15,000, $18,000 bikes, it's not gonna happen, Logan.
Yeah.
It's not gonna happen.
Yeah, I think the motorcycles we're seeing today that are new for this year and the last couple years are like sort of indicative of the values driving new, younger motorcycles these days. Because one, it's value driven, and then two, it's based on like style or aesthetics or appearance, right? That's why I think Royal Enfield, because Royal Enfield's got their finger on the pulse. It might not be the trendiest, the coolest, it might not appeal to guys like you and me, but they sell over 1 million motorcycles a year.
Yeah.
And I think their research has shown like people will buy a bike based solely how it looks.
100%.
And
like people get in the comments about the specs and this bike makes more power. Ultimately, people who aren't like super online, they just like the way a bike looks and they just go get it. Like it's not that complicated. Mostly, I think what it comes down to is like, is this okay for a beginner and do I like it? Right. That's it. You know, like as much as I hate to admit it, because I've built a whole life and business here, making thousands of videos, dissecting every motorcycle, it's not that deep. It's really not that deep. You just buy a bike and it's cool. That's it.
Yeah, for sure. And I think because there's some statistic about people change cars for a new color more than anything else? Or whatever?
The main reason people get a new car is to get a new color, which I'm sure to you, as it is to me, as very value-driven individuals who understand things about cars and bikes and stuff, you're like, Why would that ever matter?
Right.
Why would that ever matter? But some people like it, you know?
And then we haven't even talked about the bike at all. So the Thruxton 400
That's true, yeah.
is, so the Thruxton was obviously Triumph's famed model, discontinued, 2022, 2021?
Very
or
recently,
something?
yeah, very recently.
But that was like the full-blown, like, ultra cafe spec of their modern classic
Beautiful
line.
bike. Beautiful bike.
And a Sigma move, too. It's like, we're spending $18,000 on like a neo-retro classic bike that's not, super fast, but intentionally built. Everything was special and perfectly curated and whatever. So
Wire spoke wheels.
Yeah.
It's so nice.
with that in mind, the Thruxton 400 is almost kind of like the Chinese slap in the face. You know what I mean? Like,
It's an Indian slap in the face. It's an Indian light bulb to the face, you know?
because
Something
it's like,
that.
sure, it's got the little bubble fairing and stuff, and it looks pretty sweet, but it's like, I think what was so cool about the Thruxton is how insanely overbuilt it was for no reason other
Yes.
than they wanted to make the ultimate version of the
Yeah.
modern classic.
Yeah, because that name, it used to mean something, Logan. It meant something back in the day, and it doesn't anymore. And that's okay, because they're meeting the moment of what it needs to be. They need to sell a cool bike for cheap
Right.
price, and that's it. And that's why we rated it, third in today's video, because we really think that 400 in that kind of tiny bubble fairing with the clip-ons, like that aesthetic, people like that aesthetic a lot still. Like, we've been talking about how we're like, aren't we at peak cafe racing? Aren't we at peak scrambler? Like, how can we keep doing this? But, here's a fun fact for you. 33% of you watching right now, this is your first time ever watching a Yamanube video.
Terrifying.
It blows my mind, but it's true. Like, there's new people coming into this industry every single year. There's always new motorcyclists, and they see something like that and they go, wow, that's cool, and wow, I could own it, wow, I can afford it. And that's how magic is made. That's how you start riding motorcycles, and that's important. So that's why in the ranking today, you'll see, like, we're getting to the important stuff. So let's move on to number 2. Penultimate position for today's ranking of best new motorcycles for 2026 is probably not one that you expect if you know anything about me. If it's not your first time watching Yamanube, you know that this is not my preferred brand, but I gotta call it when I see it. The new F450 GS has to be one of the most important motorcycles for this year and for BMW and for motorcycling in general. Logan, what do you make of this machine?
I think, BMW is sort of known as the, outside of KTM, like the adventure bike company, right?
Yes.
All the way back, long way round, long way down, all that stuff. On every single ADV forum everywhere, ADV YouTube channel, every ADV rider, the GS Adventure is like
GS.
the ultimate adventure motorcycle. And so for a company that's known for making incredibly premium, luxury, borderline luxury adventure motorcycles, and not even making anything remotely beginner-oriented beyond the 310, which wasn't even a real sort of, that's
joke,
a whole
yeah.
different conversation. I think it's super symbolic and important. Again, similar, Kawasaki's KLE500 is really establishing the category. BMW, the adventure bike company, doing the entry-level adventure bike, just says, this is what people want, this is a real category, and they're actually investing in it beyond a rebranded Indian thing is pretty cool.
Yeah, I think it's one thing for, like Royal Enfield to make this because they're known for making beginner bike stuff. They make entry-level stuff. CFMoto makes this category because they'll just make anything that they think is going to make sales, right? But for BMW, to make a honest-to-God beginner bike that is premium in its execution, has all the similar touch points as you'd find as a big GS. This is a really big deal. It's kind of like if Ducati made a beginner bike.
Yeah, right.
You just don't see that often. And to be honest, I bet you they saw what Triumph did, and they're like, it can be done.
sure.
Because all these big, expensive brands used to be terrified of making a small bike because they're like, it's going to dilute the brand.
Yeah,
People
devalue
it, whatever. But I think now BMW sees, they're like, okay, my customer can now start with the BMW and end with the BMW. And then when they end up being 60 years old, we can get them into a BMW Rocktain.
Yeah, for sure.
And this bike is interesting because I would have thought that BMW would have kind of min-maxed this category, but they kind of didn't. They ended up making a 420cc parallel twin with a 135-degree crank because BMW can never be normal. They always got to do something different. They always got to show up with something odd to the party. And it's weird because with the G310, that bike was kind of dead on arrival because it was already kind of small compared to the category. It was never quite a 400, so I don't know why BMW didn't just make a proper 450. And the 135 crank, they say it's like, oh, it's velvety like a 270, kind of like a V-twin, but not as rough. So that's some of the stuff, and it's supposed to be really good on-road, off-road, like any GS would be. I have not ridden one yet. The reviews are kind of mixed from what I've seen, but again, you look at it and it does look like a GS, you know?
And I can't help but think too that like being a BMW GS at all, regardless of displacement, like that's huge shoes to fill. So I can't help but think that a lot of people doing these early reviews are like incredibly GS pilled, you know, and they want it to be something it's not. When at the end of the day, it is an entry level motorcycle. There are gonna be corners cut or compromises made or whatever. So maybe we just got to get one in the shop.
Maybe, yeah. And this bike, as far as I understand, also is built in partnership with their Indian manufacturers. This is not a German-built, like, you know, BMW through and through, like the bigger GS products, because then they couldn't sell it at the price point they needed to. So that's the other big trend we're seeing in 2026. It's strategic partnerships between established brands and then cheaper brands in cheaper places to build them to the price point that people want them at, right? The only reason Triumph can sell you a Thruxton 400 is because they make them in India. The only reason you get a 675 NK for that price is because it's Chinese. The partnership with KTM, like all these things are kind of coalescing, right? I think the days of like, you know, a completely bespoke, unique bike coming out, it's pretty rare to see nowadays, pretty rare.
Yeah, because it just demands a certain price and a lot of people can't afford that price or aren't willing to pay that price anymore.
Yeah, because if BMW had made an F450 GS at $10,000, dead on arrival.
Yeah, 100%.
You know, just not going to happen. So we recognize its importance in the category. It's solidifying that baby adventure thing we've been talking about here for a few years now. And there's a ton of bikes in that category now. So it's interesting to see BMW doing it. We'll see if Yamaha or Honda get into it. They need to update their engines if they're going to.
I think because Honda's right now in that category is the NX500, formerly CB500X.
Yeah.
But that's not quite the same. That's more like
commuter
sport, not sport touring, but those like
sort
kind of tall rounder things.
Yeah.
I think the real question, if the F450 GS pops off like the way the Triumph 400s have, do they go like ultra cultural nihilist broccoli head move and they do 450 S 450 RR or whatever?
Yeah.
Because BMW is good financing, I hear. They get all the 22-year-olds on the S1000s, but they can get the 18-year-olds on the 450s.
Take away the CFMoto 450 SS sales.
Exactly.
Right? Yeah, no, that's a good play. Yeah, you make a sport bike, a naked bike, you have the adventure bike, like don't do what Ducati did with their single cylinder and just put it in one bike. And it's like, no, the name of the game nowadays is cross-platform. If you're gonna dabble in this entry-level category, yeah, like do what Triumph is doing and go for world domination, you know? But that's just, I'm some nobody YouTuber. What do I know?
Shark Boy.
I'm a what? Shark Boy? That's right, I'm Shark Boy. Moving on. So Logan, what is the number one best new motorcycle?
Yeah, so saving best for last, most interesting motorcycle. I'll just rip the Band-Aid off. It's the KTM 990 RCR. And for me, again, we're talking about the patterns and the interesting things we're noticing in all these new motorcycles. Most of them are all like kind of entry-level, commuter, basic hobbyist motorcycles. The KTM is the only one that's like real motorsports, like born and bred type of motorcycle. And even though I'm not a big sport bike guy, I recognize and understand the importance of motorcycles for sport and how that drives the industry overall. And so I think that's the only motorcycle brand new for 2026 that is operating on that level.
Yeah, and I agree. It cements legitimacy for the next-gen super sport category. It also allows KTM to kind of just turn the page on their camshaft fiasco, their bankruptcy fiasco. And even though we clown on KTM here quite a bit, I love how much passion the company has. The company makes these zany, fun products. Sometimes to my taste and sensibilities, they're over the line with how aggressive and chaotic they are. I wouldn't own a KTM for those reasons. I'm not orange pilled enough, I'm not hardcore enough to own a KTM. But KTM hasn't made a real sport bike in a very long time. The RC8 was the last one they made, like way back in like the late 2000s. Because they publicly said that making those types of bikes are too dangerous for the street, but then they'll make a Super Duke. It's a bit of a question mark on that, KTM. Don't really understand that. But this bike is really important. It's an important step for KTM. It kind of is their last chance to prove that they can make stuff like this and be competitive and have it be cool and have people get excited. And it's a great road product and a track product, which is what we need more of because that makes it broader for everybody, right? Because they make the RC8C, which is the $40,000 track
track
only,
only.
and that is a phenomenal motorcycle. That's one of my favorite bikes I've ever ridden. But, you know, we're talking like sub $10,000 here. Who cares about a $40,000 track special? So
Right.
this is really important for them.
Yeah, and I think KTM's proven too, like what they do well is more specialized things, right? Like they don't
Definitely.
dab. Even their beginner bikes, the 390s, are a little bit more specialized than a Triumph 400. A little
Totally.
bit more energy and purpose, and you could feel the brand and their intentions in the machine. And so I think even within the next gen super sport category, like the 990 is maybe a little bit more interesting than like an R9. Like the R9 is kind of like,
Yeah.
it's very like just normal feeling, you know? And I feel like the KTM might be a little bit more extreme, a little bit more aggressive, a little bit more like, you know, ready to race. Whatever. That's their thing, right?
That's their thing.
Okay.
Yeah.
I
I
confuse
like
it with
how-
be a racer sometimes, which is a
That's the Aprilia thing. Everybody's racing. Yeah. But I like the styling on the 990 is really cool. It's got like the MotoGP inspired front end and like very slick. The one thing that is kind of weird about it, and this is happening with all sport bikes because they're cross-platform from naked bikes.
Yeah.
It's like really big in the middle and the tail is really stumpy. It's like the GSX 8R or the other bikes where you're like, the proportions are a little off. Like if you look at a proper super sport from like the mid 2000s, the tail's a little bit longer. It's a little bit more purposeful. But what can you do? You know, you got to take what you can get nowadays.
Sure.
Yeah.
Because it's like a trellis frame, right? Isn't that?
Yep, yeah, it's got a little trellis frame. It's steel chromoly, if you want the specific terminology. And
Like a BMX bike.
it's like a BMX bike, yeah. It's like my Huffy bike. And it's got that 8.8-inch super ultra wide screen dash, which is kind of fun. So I think it's very interesting for KTM to make this. And, you know, not every company needs to make crazy splashy products, but you
Some
do
of them
have
do.
to, some of them really do. You know, if you're a Yamaha, you're a KTM, like you've been setting the pace and the standard for motorcycling for decades. You need to be making super exciting and crazy stuff. Obviously, you got to make stuff that sells. Like, you know, you got to make the bread and butter, but you got to shoot for the stars too. And I think we've been missing that in motorcycling, man. Everything's really safe nowadays, honestly.
sure. Yeah.
Playing it really safe, cross-platforming and not taking enough risks, which is why I think, honestly, my most anticipated bike, which we didn't include here because it's not out, maybe it comes out this year, Honda's V3R.
Right.
Crazy, zany, interesting, cool, different. Like, let's get more of that, please. No more electric bikes. For the love of God, stop that. Nobody wants that. So, boys, that's our ranking today for best new bikes for 2026. What do you think? Do you agree or disagree? Did you appreciate the amount of homoeroticism in today's episode? I don't know why it ended up that way. It just was what it was. Thank you so much for tuning in to today's episode of The Homeless and the Hairless. We'll catch you in the next one. See you later.